So psychologically, it's normal for verbal project updates to feel very uncomfortable and intimidating. If we want to have a powerful voice and lead others powerfully, we need to have a powerful internal voice, and we need to be able to lead ourselves powerfully. When leaders and executives see that, they are much more likely to peg you as a high potential, as someone who really gets it and who's really thinking about where this organization is going. Welcome to The Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today's episode is for you if you have ever found yourself sitting in a large group meeting where everyone is sharing updates and you are just feeling this sense of dread and you feel super intimidated to speak up in front of this group of people and tell them what you and your team are working on. If that feels big and heavy and scary, today's episode is for you, and I think it's going to really help you. I'm going to do two things in today's episode to try to help you through this struggle, which, by the way, is totally normal and very, very common. If you are struggling with this, you are not the only one. This is something that I see a lot when I am supporting my clients. But what I'm going to help you with is, number one, we're going to talk a little bit about the psychology of this experience and why it's totally normal for this to feel scary or difficult. And I'm going to share with you what really helped me through this experience when I was really struggling with this, because I had a lot of struggles with this, especially in the early years, like the first couple of years of my career. This was very hard for me. And the second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you a framework for giving verbal project updates. This framework is called the so what, so far, so then framework. And that probably makes no sense whatsoever. But by the end of today's episode, it's going to make a lot of sense, and you're going to be able to use it to feel really clear on how to give a verbal project update. And when I say verbal project update, I just mean like you have to tell a group of people the status of something that you're working on. That is a very common thing that comes up in a corporate environment. And often when you have to do that, it's a pretty big group or a pretty big meeting. And I want to equip you to feel more confident about your ability to handle that situation, because you totally can. And when you have tools and simple frameworks that make sense to you, it takes a lot of the scariness out. Because what I've found, this is something that I have experienced personally, and I have found this to be true for so many clients. When we experience anxiety about a situation where we have to speak, a lot of times a significant chunk of the anxiety is coming from the fact that we don't feel clear in our minds on what we're supposed to say and how it's supposed to look and feel and sound. And when we have that clarity, it really helps shrink the anxiety. So the clarity that you get in today's episode, I really hope will help shrink some of that anxiety. So first, let's talk about the psychological side of this, and then I will get into my so what, so far, so then framework. It's a super fun framework, so I'm really excited to teach it. So psychologically, it's normal for verbal project updates to feel very uncomfortable and intimidating. And when I started my career and I worked at McKinsey, I will never forget how overwhelmed I felt when I got on my first project where they did daily group and team updates. So the first couple of assignments that I was on when I worked at McKinsey as a management consultant, because you're kind of staffed on a project by project basis. So you start a project, you wrap it up, then you go to your next one. The first couple of projects that I was put on, didn't have daily update meetings. So that was not something that I had done. And I was still struggling enormously with self-confidence. And I hated meetings, especially if anyone more senior than me was in the meeting room. I found them super anxiety-inducing. So when I realized that I was on a project where we were going to have a meeting every day with our project lead, and every day, everyone in the meeting was going to go around and share an update on their project and its status, I was filled with dread and anxiety to the point where, this is a very personal thing to share, but to the point where I would get really physically nauseous daily because of these check-ins. And a lot of times I would be so nauseous that by lunchtime, I wouldn't really be hungry. And I was really struggling with this. And so I just share this to normalize whatever you might be experiencing, whether maybe you're less anxious than I was, maybe you relate to it. There's no right or wrong, but I think it's so important to be very understanding of ourselves and where we're at with any particular struggle. Because one, we deserve that. And second of all, if we can be understanding with ourselves, that's what's actually going to help us feel strong enough inside to tackle the situation. So I hope that you hearing that this was very, very difficult for me gives you some permission to give yourself grace if this is very difficult for you. And even if it's not as hard for you as it was for me, the framework is still going to be really helpful to you either way. But anyway, the reason that I struggled so much with these project updates is because they were really poking and prodding at my deepest insecurities. My insecurities were all around how effective I was and whether I knew what I was doing and whether I was smart enough. And these project updates represented a moment in time where each person in the room was essentially declaring their own effectiveness by sharing progress and proudly talking about their work. And I doubted my own effectiveness. I doubted if I could make enough progress. I doubted if I could contribute things that were useful and smart. And so this update for me meant I was revealing that to everyone. I would be revealing to everyone that I'm incompetent and my projects aren't moving forward and I don't know how to talk about them in an elegant way. So it felt like all of these traits that I was so ashamed of and that I didn't want anyone to know about, everyone would see them and everyone would realize that I was a fraud when I gave this project update. And I literally remember I would get so stuck in my head, ruminating and spinning on it to the point where then by the time it was my turn to give my update, even though I had been like rehearsing it over and over and over in my head, it was so frantic that it would feel jumbled to me and it wouldn't come out elegant and eloquent at all. And there were two shifts that I made that really helped me stop being so afraid of these situations. And these weren't overnight shifts, but they made a drastic difference to the point where later in my career, I didn't mind project updates. Like they weren't something that rattled me. But like I said, this took time. But the changes I made were, number one, I shifted from talking myself down to talking myself up. And number two, I focused on simplicity. So talking myself down looked like me being really mean to myself about how hard it was for me. So instead of me being supportive and encouraging of myself, I would say things like, you're the only one struggling with this. You're so lame that this stupid little project update is so stressful and hard for you. Everyone can do this with their eyes closed, and you are struggling with this every single day. People think you're a loser. You sound really lame when you speak, and people are probably judging you for being so nervous in such a basic, simple situation. I had to switch from all of that to instead telling myself, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. I had to find more courage within myself to face those moments, and I had to realize that a portion of my struggle was coming from the fact that I was being so mean to myself and was coming from all that negative self-talk and all of that negative inner monologue that I was experiencing. I didn't realize that that inner monologue was making the struggle worse. I thought that that inner monologue of being really mean and critical to myself was an appropriate response to a situation where I quote unquote should have been able to handle it better. And what I now know, and what really informs my work as a coach when I'm supporting my clients with this, is I know that the inner dialogue that I am engaging in is going to have an enormous impact on how well I can navigate the situation, and also how quickly I can learn to feel more comfortable and confident in that situation. So the first shift was just switching away from that self-critical dialogue that I was having in my mind to making a commitment to supporting myself in the moment. And I would really encourage you, if you are struggling with verbal project updates or just any other situation that elicits anxiety for you, I would really just encourage you to look at, when I'm in that situation, what kinds of things am I telling myself in the moment? What kind of thoughts and inner monologue am I experiencing psychologically? And how is that inner monologue making me feel in the moment? This is really where you can find the opportunity to shift your mindset. And the next thing you want to ask yourself is, what do I need to tell myself to feel strong and capable enough to handle this? And I would challenge you, once you identify what that is, I would challenge you to get better and better at disconnecting from the self-criticism and connecting to that more empowering inner dialogue that is going to help you through that moment. That was enormously useful for me. It's a practice, it's a muscle that you just have to build, and it's one that gets stronger with practice. It's a huge muscle that I focus on with my clients in my group program, the Art of Speaking Up Academy, because it truly is at the core of everything. If we want to have a powerful voice and lead others powerfully, we need to have a powerful internal voice, and we need to be able to lead ourselves powerfully. And the beautiful thing about that is, not only does that make our voice and our communication stronger and more confident, but it also helps us feel genuinely better inside. So it's a win-win. But that being said, I know it's also going to help you to have some tactical steps that can really guide you through how to give verbal project updates in a way that is simple and that doesn't feel overwhelming. It is so important. I cannot emphasize this enough. It is so important to learn to communicate simply. This is also something I support my clients with at a deeper level in my group program. But the more that you can simplify, the easier it is to deliver your ideas. So this framework is intended to help project updates feel simple and natural and intuitive. The goal is to kind of remove all of the overwhelm around it and make it feel like this easy ABC step 1, 2, 3 type of thing. Okay, so the framework is called So What, So Far, So Then. This is a very versatile framework. You're going to be able to use it in so many situations, so I feel very excited to teach it to you. So the first part of the framework is so what. So what means that you start with the so what of your verbal project update. And what I mean by that is you want to ask yourself, so what? Like, why is this exciting? So what about this project? There's a reason that you're doing this project. There's a reason this project is exciting. There's a reason it's benefiting your organization. I want you to figure out what that reason is. And I want you to introduce the project sharing that reason, sharing the so what. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I am working on a market research project. So I'm going to go out and do a survey to my company's customers so that I can learn more about their preferences. So I'd ask myself, okay, so what? So what? Like, why are we doing this project? Why is it exciting? So what? And what I'd realize is, learning about our customers is going to help us market better. It's going to help us design better products. So that's what's really exciting about this project. So when I introduce the topic of the project, I'm going to introduce it by also pairing it with the so what. So an example of how that would sound would be something like, my team and I have been working on a market research project. We're excited about it because it's going to give us customer insights that will help us market better and design even better products for our customers. Now, the reason that we share in a so what format is twofold. Number one, it's always going to feel easier for you to share an idea or to speak when there is a positive feeling associated with what you're sharing. It is always easier to share something that is good and joyful and happy and promising versus to share something neutral that doesn't have those positive emotions attached to it. And so by figuring out what about your project is interesting, it's going to put you in a better and easier energy for delivering the project update. But also, it makes you look really polished and it makes you look really effective as a leader because you're talking about the bigger picture implications of the work that you're doing. So if a leader hears an update like that, they're going to see you as being very effective and very mature in your work because you're not just down in the weeds, trapped in the details and nuances of the work that you're doing. You can see the bigger picture vision and that bigger picture impact on the business. And when leaders and executives see that, they're much more likely to peg you as a high potential, as someone who really gets it and who's really thinking about where this organization is going. And that is really good for your reputation. It positions you really well for future growth and promotions. So that is the first part of the framework. So what? The second part of the framework is so far. So we've covered so what, and now I'm going to talk about so far. So far is the easiest part of the framework. It literally is where you talk about what you have done on the project so far, and you can literally start your sentence with the words so far. So you can say something like, so far, we've finalized the survey and hired a vendor who is going to put the survey out to a group of 1,000 previous customers. Boom. You just shared the so far. Super easy, right? That's just you giving the actual status update. Now, the last part of the framework builds on that. So after you've done so far, you're going to do so then. And again, this is designed to be really easy for you. Like, it's just so easy that there's no way that you could get stuck applying this framework. So the final part, so then, is where you're going to talk about what you will do next. The phrase so then represents you talking about, okay, then what are we going to do next? So an example of so then in this case would be, next week, we're going to be launching the survey and we'll have all of the results collected and analyzed by the end of Q2. So all you did was share just the next step. So to recap so far, we have so what is this project and why is it exciting? So far, what have we done so far? So then, what are we going to do next? And now, as a bonus, if you want this to be even more effective, you can end it with another layer of so what. You can end it with one last quick thought on why this is exciting. So in this example, that might be something like, we're looking forward to sharing the insights with you because they'll help us all inform our strategy for the following quarter. So just so you can hear the so what, so far, so then put all together, I'm not reading this off a script or anything, so it won't match exactly, but it'll be close. Here's what the update would sound like. The update would sound something like this. My team has been working on a customer research project, which we're excited about because it's going to help us market to our customers better. So far, we have written the survey, hired a vendor, and identified a subset of 1,000 customers who will be taking the survey. Our next step is we'll be launching the survey next week, and by the end of the quarter, we're going to have analyzed all of the results. We're excited about it because the findings in this survey are going to help inform the following quarter's strategy. Now, that might sound fancy and like a lot, but if you follow this framework, you will be able to arrive at those pieces. And to help you apply the so what, so far, so then framework, I encourage you to slow down and actually write it out before your next meeting. And the most important thing with this is that each part should feel really simple to you. It should feel like it's a bite-sized, quick piece of the update, and it's easy for you to put all of the pieces together. So to summarize what I shared in today's episode, number one, if you struggle with verbal project updates, you are not alone. This is something that used to be a really big challenge for me. Number two, one of the best things you can do for yourself is not be mean to yourself and not say harsh, judgy things to yourself when you're in the moment of struggle, but instead practice saying things to yourself that feel empowering, supportive, and encouraging. This will make a world of difference as you learn to get better at doing that. And then number three, use the so what, so far, so then framework to share your update. Start by introducing your project topic and why it's exciting. Then talk about what's already been done, and then talk about the next step. And as a bonus, you can reiterate why you're excited about that next step as the very last thing that you share. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I am so appreciative to have you listening. If you found this helpful and you know someone who would love to up-level their verbal communication, please share this episode with them so that they can learn this framework and have this as a resource as well. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you for being here, and I will catch you in the next episode. Oh, and if you want more resources, check the show notes for some different ways you can get free stuff from me. I will drop all of that in the show notes, and I'll catch you later. Bye.